Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master, Oseron the Eternal, or the artist formerly known as the Great Roberto, for another video. Yesterday I made a video called Reflection of the Abyss, and I had mentioned that it was just sort of a little tidbit. Well, turns out that's actually not quite the case. It's actually one of the most powerful secrets I've ever discovered. And I figured it out as I was drawing up something that I honestly didn't ever intend to make a video about. And as I was doing that, I figured out what's really going on. So I have to make a video about this. It's too important. It really is. Okay, what we have here is Reflection of the Abyss, Part 2, I guess, if you want to call it that. But this is the Secret of Daath, or Oseron's Heart. Okay, now some of you might be saying, what the fuck is Daath? Well, I've been talking about the Tree of Life, the so-called Tree of Life, the true Tree of Life, the Jewel of Creation, and on and on and on. And there's one thing I've never mentioned yet, and that is the, what some call the invisible Sephiroth, Daath. But it's not really a Sephiroth at all, and they say that in Kabbalistic fucking works. They say Daath is not the Sephiroth, it's not part of the tree. And it's not. But what it is, now what they'll say it is, if you talk to a Kabbalist and they ask what Daath is, get ready for a fucking, a bombardment of just vague language, abstract words and concepts, and all that. Really, what Daath is, what they'll say Daath is knowledge. So it's sort of like an Akashic record. That's probably one of the best ways to describe it. It's sort of like a collective memory for everything that's ever happened is what Daath would be. If you listen to what that is. But that's not really what it is. In the place where Daath sits, if you look at the Tree of Life, any version of it, because don't forget, the structure is based in geometry. It's the numbers and the meanings that are varied. But if you look at the Tree of Life, you're going to notice, almost everybody notices something right away, is that there's a big fucking hole in the middle of it. As a matter of fact, what I have here is the top two triangles of the Tree of Life, and you're going to see right in the middle of it, it forms a 6, but right in the middle of it there's an empty space, and I have a little dotted diagram in there showing that that is where Daath is, and that empty space is where Daath is. But Daath, as I said, isn't some abstract, nebulous concept of ineffable description, as a Kabbalist will fucking gladly go on a diatribe about endlessly. What it really is a placeholder for what would be the heart of the Jewel of Creation, the Tippereth of the Jewel of Creation, the heart of the Jewel of Creation. Because yesterday when I made the video about Reflections of the Abyss, the third construct was this here. This is sort of like the focused view of the whole point of that, in a way. Because if you notice, the top triangle cancels out to 9, the lower cancels out to 9, and then we had this middle triangle that formed, a complete balance. And the way I had it drawn up yesterday was exactly like this. I had the 2 8s, and then the 2 here, and then I, said 16. 8 and 8 is 16, and that becomes 7, and on and on. But that's not what happens. That's not what happens. Because remember, if you had the tree here, and the reflection of the jewel is here, it flips up onto itself like that. And this is also what I'm showing here. But what you get when you do that is this construct in the middle. This is exactly what happens when you do that. Because as you see here, the mirror image of this triangle doesn't invert so it fits. It's upside down so it fills in, so the heart That is, this Sephiroth here fills in the empty space of Daath, and it fills in that hole. So what you have left is complete perfection and complete balance. This is the heart of not only creation, but all possible existence as we as humans could possibly ever understand it. This is literally the heart of God. And what this also does, this also validates my postulation that on the true tree of life, or Oseron's tree, it starts out as water, then goes fire, and then air, and then earth. Well, this validates that as being correct. Because what happens when you tip the tree or the jewel back onto itself is you get perfect balance. This Sephiroth is a balance of feminine and masculine. This Sephiroth becomes a balance of masculine and feminine, with the complete representation of 8 as the elements in each one. And then the hearts of both constructs stay separated. The 5, that is the true tree, stays within its masculine heart. It's a feminine number. 5 is a feminine number, but it has a masculine heart of fire. And the heart that is the jewel of creation has a masculine number, because it's a masculine construct, but the heart of that is water. So when you do that, these two Sephiroth balance out with masculine and feminine, inverted, but these stay true. These haven't done anything yet. These still stay separated. So the hearts of both constructs stay separated in this construct until it's time to join them together to 9. And what you get when you add up all these numbers is 27. Okay? Now this other version over here is what would happen if you took these numbers and reduced them. You get 11, and then that is 11 is just 2 1. So if you did it that way, a 1 would go in the top and a 1 would go on the bottom, and then what you get is 8 and 8 and 1 and 1, which is, the 1 is just Kundalini and the 8 is material, the material world. So you get, again, it's the same thing. It's just a more refined aspect, but it's perfectly balanced in every way. Perfectly balanced in every way. Now, in Hinduism, there's a number one of their sacred numbers is 108, 108. And my postulation is that the reason it's written as 108 and not just 18 as 0, 1, and 8, because you have to, if you do it that way, if you write it as 108, you have to acknowledge 0, and you can't forget it. If you were to write 018, through time and history and whatever goes on as stories spread, it would be easy for that 0 to just fall off and not get represented. But if you write it as 108, it shows up. You can't lose that 0. So, and up here in this little corner here, I have a triangle written up with 0 on the top, and then 1 over on the feminine side, which is Kundalini. Then on the masculine side, it would be 8 for the completeness of materialism, the complete infinity of matter. And this little triangle here is also a way that you could represent the tree of life in the fewest possible steps. Because 0, 1, and 8 is the tree of life encapsulated completely without the story. It's sort of like the finished product, but it's so that's why, so if you put the 0 on top and then below that, the separation of the 0 is 1 and 8, with Kundalini and matter separated, you get that little construct. So, this is just absolutely amazing. So, so you see what's going on here. This is my, I try to get a little artistic with this. I'm not an artist, so this drawing that little construct for me is a monumental feat. So you're seeing the lower construct merge into the top, and this is what you get: perfect and complete balance. This is Oseron's heart. That is the secret of Daath. Daath isn't this nebulous construct, this nebulous, abstract, vague concept that Kabbalists like to pretend it is. No, it's only a placeholder. It's just a void space for the completion. So again, it's showing what happens, because we are the construct, we are the jewel of creation, and then God, the creative element behind all of that, is working as the true tree of life. And then when you join those together and work in harmony, you get the heartbeat of being here. That's what this is. This image is so powerful. This is perfect. The beauty of it is it's perfectly balanced in every way. And what happens is when you fold it onto itself, the top is the feminine, and the bottom is masculine. So again, in the showing that, it shows the feminine precede the masculine, as it always will. But it's perfectly balanced. You got the fucking, I just explained that, so I don't need to do it again. But that is what's going on with this. And one thing I want to just kind of point out right now, I always write, or I always say, on these I write here, Oseron 369. Let me just explain exactly what that is and why I do that. That's not just because I like 369. For the longest time, I was trying to come up with a single word name for myself. It took me years to finally come to Oseron. But one day, Oseron sort of stuck. And then it was after I started using it later on. But when you apply English gematria using the single digit code of 0 through 9, but you don't use 0 in that construct, so you would use 1 through 9 in that case, because remember, it's the material creation, so you wouldn't use 0 in that context, because the jewel of creation, well, it's not here, but the jewel of creation, as you see, doesn't use 0 at that point. But if you use English gematria using the numbers 1 through 9, it becomes Oseron. The word Oseron, the name Oseron, comes to 36. And then, 3 plus 6 is 9, so that's why I write that. Oseron, and then 36 over 9, that's what that means. So 36 and the slash, just all that means is the 36 becomes 9. And I didn't plan that. I had no idea that did that. That just revealed itself to me after I already started using the name Oseron. Pretty wild. Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty close to being it. But yeah, what I thought was just a little tidbit yesterday ended up being something extremely powerful. I mean, really powerful. And again, all of these videos that I've made, every single one of them, they all mesh together. They all support each other. It's not like these are separate constructs that only work independently. Every one of them works together. Every one of them works together. It's all a gigantic tapestry that tells a story of creation. It tells a story that we live in a digital holofractal matrix. It is a direct reflection of divine source is projected. We live in, this is a projected reality, and that's what that's telling you. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm going to work on end screens again. I did it yesterday, but I kind of covered myself up with them, so I'm going to leave a few seconds on the end of this to allow for end screens. So namaste and thank you. Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master, Oseron, the Eternal, or the artist formerly known as the Great Roberto, for yet another video. I'm sure everyone's getting goddamn sick of this, but it just keeps revealing, the things just keep revealing themselves in this. I have to document it, But here we go. This shouldn't be a long video. This is basically just a cool little, tidbit, I guess. What it shows is how the Oseron's tree, or the true tree of life, and Oseron's jewel, or the jewel of creation, work together And it actually shows how Oseron's jewel is a mirror, is a reflection of divinity, and it shows that through the numbers, which is beautiful. So what that is saying, so when they say that we human beings were created in God's image, well, the numbers back that up. And both the tree and the jewel working together corroborate that. Let's see how that works. Trying to avoid shadows on the board. Okay, well, we see up here Oseron's tree, and below that we see the jewel. Well, a couple of days ago, while staring at a different version of this, a different picture of this, I noticed that if you envision the jewel as a mirror of the upper Sephiroth below the 9, then it does some interesting things with the numbers and the elements. And over here, this other tree that I have shows what's going on with that. So here's the tree, and this is like a reflected mirror in a pond or something like that, you know what I mean? So you have to basically tip it back up. Like here's the tree, and here's the reflection. You got to tip it back up onto itself. And when you do that, the numbers do some really interesting things. The top triangle, the supernal triangle, cancels each other out with 9. All the numbers produce 9. Same thing with the lower triangle. I know this is the supernal, this is the ethical triangle, and this is the, I forget what they call it exactly, but it's the astral triangle. I think that might be what it is, the astral. But then again, I can't even be positive that those Jewish names are correct, because I just haven't looked at that more in depth. That could be wrong too. But so this cancels each other with 9, this cancels with 9. But the middle triangle, the one where the heart of the tree is, does something very interesting. They both cancel, they don't cancel each other out to 9. Instead, they both balance each other out completely with 8 on the feminine, and 8 on the masculine, and then 2 in the, where Tiphareth is. And then when you go over here and just sort of analyze that triangle by itself, you see what's going on. 8 plus 8 becomes 16, and then 16 reduced becomes 7, and then 7 plus 2 becomes 9. So the whole center triangle eventually cancels itself out to 9, but it doesn't do it right away. So that's interesting. And then again, you see with 16, there's still the separation of the feminine and the masculine. This side over here is the 1. In this case, the 1 represents Kundalini. And the 6, which is the masculine mask of Kundalini, is coming from the masculine side, where 6 would reside anyway, according to the tarot trumps. Because if you recall the tarot trumps on the I Own the Tree of Life video, shows that the pillar of Boaz becomes 3, the pillar of Yakin becomes 6, and the middle pillar becomes 36, which becomes 9. So, and it was seeing a similar variation of that here. So, and then next to this, what I have written is just the Sephiroth that are involved using both the tree and the jewel. So in Kether here we have 0 and 9. In Binah we have 1 and 8. Chokmah is 2 and 7. Whatever the fuck that goddamn one is. Gabora is 3 and 5. My brain, I just came from a run. I just came from a really good run, so my brain is a little bit off right now. I can't even think of this goddamn Sephiroth. But whatever it is, it's 4 and 4. Tiphareth is 5 and 6. Hod is 6 and 3. Netzach is 7 and 2. Yesod is 8 and 1. And of course, the kingdom. In both cases, I drew the kingdom as a hexagram, because as we see in this material world, the hexagram in 6 shows up all over the place. Honeycombs, fucking Saturn, South Pole, all kinds of structures, show up as 6, and all kinds of snowflakes, everything. It's all over the place.
So I drew that as a 6 to represent that. And over here the same thing. I drew that like that, and then I drew the enclosure around this as a 6. And also, if you notice, around these, I drew the circles using 2 colors, blue for feminine and red for masculine, because that's exactly what happens with this pillar. The pillar of Boaz starts out feminine, and then with the pole flip, it switches from feminine to masculine. And the same thing with the pillar of Yakim, it starts out purely masculine, and then after the pole flip, it goes from masculine to feminine. And the same thing with this, middle pillar. One number is a feminine representative on the true tree, and the jewel of creation is a 6, and that's feminine to masculine. So it shows the continuous oscillation of the feminine and the masculine. So that's why I drew that like that. And also, one thing over here I want to add about the elements. There's 2 ways you can look at this. Because if you recall from other videos, I suggested that the real order is water, fire, and then air. And now, if you look at it as a mirror, that doesn't corroborate that. But it's sort of it's a mirror that doesn't have to follow that rule. And again, I'm still toying with the idea that the masculine and feminine energies do continually oscillate with each other. So in this case, it's showing that it's not a mirror. In this case, it's the opposite. The reflection is the opposite. But if it was the other way, it would be a mirror. But this still makes more. This absolutely still makes more sense. The waters from the unknown. This 0 represents that, and then the action of it is the fire here, and then the air, and then here. Now the kingdom, as they say, is a exact analog of the human body, because it starts out with the whole thing is the body, just like our body is a whole. Our whole body is a body. And then in the top triangle, the supernal triangle is black or air, and it represents the mind or the head or the brain. The middle one is blue, and that represents the heart and the emotions. And the lower one is the sex, the fire, the sex. That's exactly what we have. We have our brains, we have our heart, and then you can't see my hands on my fucking dick. But it's the sex, the fire of the sex. So this jewel, the jewel of creation, is exactly what we are. We are the jewel of creation here, and we are created in God's image. That's one way to look at it. Yeah, so this should be a short video. As a matter of fact, this might be it. I just wanted to sort of get that out there. Again, I wasn't even going to make a video about this because there's actually a lot of things I don't make videos about. But again, I wanted the imagery, the picture. I wanted it drawn up. I wanted the imagery drawn up for future reference. But one example of thing, on the Oseron spiral, or the Oseron tarot spiral, I got pages and pages of notes that never made it in the video. And one thing I do want to point out about that, so if you watch that, if you go back and watch the Oseron tarot spiral, one thing about the numbers that's amazing with that, if I can recall offhand, the house of Libra, which is in the proper order, is the 7th house. And what is Libra? But the scales of balance. That's associated with Libra. Well, the numbers in there, all of them are balanced out. The tarot cards that go there, first is the 10, right? And then next is Justice 11. Well, the stacked root of the cards that fall in the 10 spot is 55, which is, of course, balanced 5 and 5. And then the next number after that stacked root is 66, right? Which again is balanced. And if you add 55 and 66, I think it becomes like 121. And that is all perfectly balanced. Every one of those goddamn numbers is perfectly balanced. And even the jump from the stacked root of Virgo, I think it's 45, to the stacked root in Libra, which is 55, if you add those up, it becomes an even 100. So there's a lot of really, really wild things going on with that video. So if you haven't watched that video yet, go back and watch that, because I'm actually going to toy with end screens in this video, so I may add that in an end screen for people to watch. So thank you, and namaste.